begin. So first off, thanks everybody for taking time out of your Sunday to join and be a part of this. We really appreciate it and want to make sure that we're having communication with you guys and making sure that you guys feel like you guys are being heard. So first off, I want to introduce myself. My name is Amanda Reynolds. I am the WAG Rules Coordinator for the NAIGC. I am also the TNT Rules Coordinator, so if you were to have any questions about TNT, I would be the same contact point. I've been involved with the NAIGC in total for about 10 years. I've been a part of the organizing group part of it for 4 years now. But I started out as an athlete at Penn State, and then once I graduated, I realized that I didn't want to leave gymnastics go. And so I continued on and joined on as an advisor in the old board, and then now part of the operations team. I also want to have Lauren introduce herself as your regional coordinator so that you can get to know her a little bit as well.
Hi guys, I'm Lauren. As Amanda said, I'm your regional coordinator. I am a former UConn club gymnast, so I've competed in the region before. I've been the regional coordinator the past 3 years, and feel free to let me know if you have any questions about anything. Please contact me.
Thank you. So if everyone, before I forget, if everyone can put their name and their club in the chat, just so that I have it for future records as far as who attended the meeting and so that we know who all we need to make sure to send this to after the fact. That would be really helpful as well. And then I will also put in some links for you guys as well that we'll be going over in a couple minutes. So these are all the links and stuff that I'm going to talk about just so that you guys have them, and then I'll post another set of links in a little bit once we move on to kind of more of the rules-centered information. So the first thing I want to share is basically some information about where you can find more information if you ever have questions or anything. So I'm going to share my screen. So the first website that I want to make you guys aware of is the WAG rules page on the NAIGC website. You can get to it several ways. The direct link is naigc.org/women's-rules. But if you were on the homepage, you can also go to the rules dropdown and women's artistic gymnastics, and all of this is here. We have this updated every year with the rules information, so you can see right here in big highlighted orange is the rules document for this year so far. We also have lots of drop-down information that has more resources. So we have the NAIGC WAG Code of Points editions. So if you didn't know, as an NAIGC member, you can, if you compete a skill that is not currently in existence in the USAG Code of Points, you can submit it to be named within the NAIGC Code of Points. So I'll see if I can get it to load. Sometimes it's really slow. But we have, I think, 5 or 6 submissions as of now. And all you have to do to get a tentative skill value is just send a video of yourself performing the skill to rules@naigc.org. All this is in the women's rules policy as well. And then from there, the rules team will evaluate it, we'll give it a preliminary rating. And then if you were to compete it, then we would be able to name it after you with a second submission of the video. So you can see we have 4 skills here on balance beam and 2 on floor. And then we have an additional one that we recently approved that's not yet on here. But that is something that's available to our membership. And is something that not a lot of people realize until they see some of the cool videos that we post of these skills. The first drop down is resources primarily for gymnasts. So we have quick guide booklets and posters. So these basically are quick hint guides as far as the rules, and kind of like cheat sheets essentially for athletes. We also have a MAG to WAG transition guide in case anyone is looking to do decathlon. We also have sets of example routines. We do have for level 8 and level 9, the existing videos do still work. We're in the process of creating ones for Excel Silver and Excel Platinum. And then we also have a playlist of progression videos that we're constantly updating as we create new things there as well. Again, there's lots of drop downs. I'm not going to go through all of them, but there is a table here with all of the requirements for all of the different levels, all of the policies. So if you need like the rules document or the national championship policy or competition eligibility and policy, that's all in there. We also have a helpful list of resources from USAG. So these are things that are available freely on the USAG website, as well as a few catered more towards the Excel levels that we're trying to update in the process as well. So again, if you're ever looking for something, it's very likely that it's on this web page, as we've worked really hard to make things available. And then if you ever have any questions pertaining to the rules, rules@naigc.org is a great resource that goes to myself and the other rules chairs, and we're generally very quick to respond to things as well. Another helpful resource that I want to make you guys aware of is the NAIGC Rules Info Instagram page. This is another very easy way to get in contact with us. We post every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So we have MAG Monday, TNT Tuesday, and WAG Wednesday. And generally we post pictures or videos or helpful information every week. So you can see, this was last week, so it's skills that are allowable for Excel Silver that may not be in the traditional USAG code, to help create some of those lower level routines. And we have all sorts of things. So these progression videos, so this was drills for KIPS, all sorts of different ideas. If you ever have any questions or thoughts or ideas for future WAG Wednesday posts, we'd love to hear them. We're also really responsive to comments and DMs on this page as well, if you ever wanted to get in contact or had specific questions about anything on this page. Speaking of social media, so on this page, naigc.org/social-media has a link to all of the social media platforms that we have. So there's several Facebook pages, both pages and groups, both the main NAIGC Instagram and the Rules Info Instagram, as well as our YouTube, TikTok, and Twitter as well. So now I want to take you to the registration website. One thing that would be really helpful for us, if you guys would be able to do, so I'm under the assumption that everyone that is here is probably a club admin. If you don't have club admin access, I would recommend first talking to your previous club leadership. They can grant you access. Or if you still have issues getting access, you email info@naigc.org. We can help you get access. But once you're logged in as an admin for your club, you'll be able to go to My Team and My Club, type in your club's information up here. So I have it set to Penn State because that's where I went. But from there, you can go ahead and fill in what kind of club. So if you're a collegiate club or a community club, what disciplines you have, and basically whatever information that are in these drop downs or these blanks would be really helpful. A lot of this information goes directly onto our website, and that will help both us refer individuals who are looking for clubs, as well as helping you guys increase membership by having your information out there for people to be able to find you as well. So that is under the My Team, My Club. And then over here, I want to show you the registration page. So again, under My Team and Meet Management, you can go in for your club. I have this just set to MIT for their regional meet. But you can see then you can add someone's by name and choose what you want them to be registered as. This is all the same as last year. If you or someone else that you know was part of that, the registration part last year, all of that is the same for this year as well. If anyone has any questions, feel free to stick around at the end of the meeting, or again, feel free to reach out to Rules at, and we'd be happy to help you guys as well. Let's see. So again, that was a lot of talking. Before I move on to more of the rules changes for this year, does anybody have any questions? And feel free to either unmute yourself or pop things in the chat if you would prefer. I'm going to go ahead and move on, but if anyone has anything, I'll try and come back to it as well. So the next part does have a little bit more engagement with you guys. I have a couple quick questions for you guys, and then we'll move on to more of the rules, policies, and changes. So again, feel free to unmute or pop things in chat. As of right now, and you can answer either for last year or what you're planning on using for this year, what levels does your team generally compete? And do you feel like the levels that you compete or that the NAIGC offers meet your team's needs? Okay, level 8, yes. Level 6 and level 8. 6 to 8, okay. Do you feel like with the change to silver, platinum, 8, 9, do you guys still feel like there's a place for you and your team and your athletes? And hi to the few people that joined. We did go ahead and get started, but the whole meeting is being recorded. So you'll be able to go back and watch the beginning of the meeting. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We'll make sure to send this video link out to everybody. And also for those that joined, if you can pop your name and club in the chat, that would be really helpful for us. So the next question I have for you guys is, how can we best communicate things like rule changes or like policy changes, rules updates, things like that, to you and or your club? Email, is that better from like our announcement emails or from the regional rep or your regional coordinator? Things posted to social media, things posted to the website. What things generally work best for you, or do you guys see the best and the easiest? Email and social media. And I guess kind of a follow-up to that is, have you guys been seeing a lot of the like the rules updates that we posted this year? And are you guys all on the announcement email list? Okay, email. And then the next question is, what resources that the NAIGC, especially the WAG rules team, if that's applicable to you, what resources do you guys find the most useful? So this is kind of catered towards like, what things do you guys want more information about in terms of things like the rules info page or resources on the website, stuff like that. And then kind of as a follow-up to that, if anyone has anything, is there any information that you feel like you're missing or would like to know more about in terms of us creating new content for you guys? Okay, I will go ahead and move on. But again, if anyone has anything to add, feel free to pop it in the chat and I'll try and go back and read it as well. Oh, I just saw something come in. Resources we have now are good. Okay, good to know. So in terms of the Excel rules, there are some of them available on the website. The biggest catch, and this comes to all of the rules, unfortunately, all of that is copyrighted by USAG in terms of like the code of points. And while it is slightly more accessible from the traditional USAG pages, I'll show you some links in a second. They unfortunately don't have the same resources for Excel. And we have had discussions with USAG and we are not allowed to like directly post things that aren't otherwise linked on the USAG page. So we are kind of in a catch-22, which is why we've tried to create a lot of the resources that we've been putting on Instagram in terms of the WAG Wednesday posts, and why we've been catering a lot of that towards Excel is because we know it's not as easily available, but we can't directly post any of the content because all of that is copywritten by USAG. So let me pull this up real quick. And I am hopeful that as the season finally gets underway, we will get a little bit more information with the Excel pages. Let me share my screen real quick. So on the USAG page, they have the developmental program 2022-2026 code of points, and they have all of their updates linked, and they have all of their appendices linked. But on the Excel page, they only have just recently posted the essentially replacement pages. And we will be posting those. We are trying to create a catalog of the WAG Wednesday posts on the website, but again, we can't directly post any of the additional skills or basically any pages out of the code directly. I will say we do have one link as of right now that has some of that to try and make it a little bit more accessible. But my hope is that as USAG starts to share more pages, we'll be able to share those documents. But at least from what we have so far, this should serve as a basic starting point for Excel. But unfortunately, I don't really want to share too much more than that, just so that we don't end up with any issues in copyright with USAG. I do know that we had a couple people join late again. We are in the process of recording this meeting, so if you have any questions, you'll be able to rewatch back the beginning of the video. And if you have any questions, feel free to email rules@naigc.org, and we'll make sure to pass all of the links and such along as well. Any questions before I move on to the rules changes for this year? Okay. So the original intent for this meeting was to have it be held before we ended up making the changes for this year, to kind of get a full, to be able to kind of get input on the potential level changes, But with that decision now already being made, we want to kind of pass along some of those changes and what they mean for athletes and coaches in general. So we will start with the transition from developmental to silver. And the most notable change comes from vault. So previously we did have the several non-repulsion style vaults for developmental. And one of the things we got as far as feedback from both nationals and from meets where developmental was utilized was that the non-repulsion vaults were notoriously difficult to score. And we also got feedback from athletes that they didn't feel like the existing vaults really helped progress towards future vaulting over the table. So with that, we wanted to make sure to take all of that into account. And so we went ahead and transitioned to just the 2 vault options over the table, or not over the table, over the resi. So you can either do a handspring over the resi or a half on over the resi, both turned sideways. So you're vaulting over the short end or the short side of the resi. And with that, either of those vaults will start out of a 10.0. Athletes are eligible to use a mini tramp springboard if that is something that is available and made available by the meet host, or athletes, if they were so to choose, could choose to bring a mini tramp with them as well. But that is not something that we are requiring meet hosts to do, because again, that may not be equipment that they currently have in their gym. So I would encourage, if you are planning on competing Excel Silver and going to a meet that is hosted by a school, to try and contact that school and see what options may be available in terms of vault springboards. If that is something that is that would affect you. And with that, we just wanted to make sure that we were making it so that athletes and judges both were able to get their feedback and thoughts heard as far as the available vaulting options. As far as uneven bars, for most of the Excel Silver to developmental or developmental to Excel Silver changes, the base requirements did not change much, if at all, because when we were creating the developmental rules 2 years ago, we wanted to make sure to base it on an existing level, as that was something we got feedback from judges in the past. So the special requirements remain largely the same. As you can see, none of that really changed much, if at all. The only difference is that in developmental, you were required to compete 6 skills, and now with silver, you're only required to compete 5. And also in developmental, you were able to compete any A or B skill. And now in Excel Silver, as the NAIGC is going to use it, it is A only skills, and then you are allowed to have 1 additional B circling skill that is either a clear hip, toe circle, or shoulder circle to clear support. So not to handstand, but just to clear support to help facilitate a transition up to platinum when an athlete is ready. So again, some of what that entails is no B or higher skills other than the ones I specifically mentioned, no salto dismounts, and not that most NAIGC athletes are probably competing that, but no low bar giants would be eligible in Excel Silver. Moving to beam, again, most of that is the same as it was previously. The half turn, the leap or jump that has a 90-degree split element, an acro skill. In Excel Silver, it just specifies that it cannot have flight, as well as a dismount. And again, because we downgraded it slightly, all A skills are still allowed, along with B dance skills. So the only thing that then restricts is no B acro. As far as Excel Silver bars, jump to front support, I'm not sure offhand. I will try and look quickly towards the end of this meeting. In terms of floor, again, everything pretty much remains the same, all of the special requirements, with the exception of the 2 tumbling requirements are the same. The 2 tumbling requirements did get upgraded slightly. However, we believe that for the most part, athletes that were competing in developmental probably are still eligible and able to be competing these skills. So the first acro requirement requires 2 directly connected elements, one of which must include flight. So a round off would count as a flight skill, a front handspring, a back handspring, even something like a dive cartwheel would be eligible to meet that. So that would just need to be connected to another skill in order to make that connection. And then a second acro pass that either has 2 elements or 1 element that is flight. So you could do cartwheel backward roll, or you could do a round off. Either of those would meet that requirement or that idea of a skill connection. Before I move on to Excel Platinum, does anybody have, where does it say a round off is considered a flight skill in the Excel rules? That is just a definition by, it's even considered a flight skill in the upper optional levels. That's just a definition of a round off. It counts as a flight skill. In addition, all of the recommended requirements or ways to fulfill the floor requirements in Excel Silver explicitly use round off in that context as well. So, for example, let me find. So, for example, one of the it is considered a flight skill. It is not considered a salto the same way a back handspring would be. Because round off, back handspring, back layouts, or round off, back handspring, back full would still count towards a 3 skill pass requirement. But in terms of routine examples, for silver floor, this is directly from the code. It says round off, rebound, back extension roll meets special requirement 1, and a single round off counts for special requirement 2, which are the 2 acro pass requirements. I will also say, Abby, you and I have had this conversation before, so we can continue this conversation offline if you have additional questions that I have not already addressed. But I am, unless anybody else has any questions about silver, I am going to go ahead and move on to platinum. Okay, in terms of, yes, we are aware that that these are available, and we've been trying to make posts and content available to people to show these questions and ways to meet these requirements. In terms of the transition from 6-7 to platinum, it actually will open up the availability for more vaults. So with both level 6 and level 7, we use the front handspring, the half on, and the Yurchenko timer to a landing on a level surface as the 3 allowable vaults for level 6 and level 7. So with the transition to platinum, there are now several different options for vaults. All of those 3 vaults now will start out of a 9-7. But there is then additional incentive to begin adding twists, excuse me. So a front handspring or a half on or a Yurchenko timer that has a half twist then gets upgraded to 9.9. This should be a 9.9, my mistake. And then anything with a full twist off then gets upgraded to a 10.0 start value. So a half on full off would have a 10.0 start value, whereas a half on repulsion would have a 9.7 start value. So for those that were only competing the repulsion no twist style, the start value will go down by 0.3, but with that, it does allow for a little bit more rewarding for difficulty while not downgrading the vault so much that a clean lower level vault will probably still score higher than a messy vault with a full 10.0 start value. In terms of bars, things are actually significantly easier in Platinum compared to 6 and 7. So in level 6, it used to be that you had to count a cast to 45 degrees above horizontal, with level 7 being a cast to handstand. USAG did drop both of those by 45 degrees. So level 6 now just has to have a cast above horizontal, and level 7 now is 45 degrees above horizontal. Excel Platinum is now essentially the same as the new USAG 6. However, it does not have to be a cast. It can be any skill that reaches clear support. So for example, a clear hip to above horizontal would meet the requirement in Excel Platinum, where it would not in level 6. So if you have someone that may not be able to cast very high, but may be able to clear hip or toe circle, something like that, they would be eligible to meet that requirement now in Platinum. As far as a circling skill, Platinum only requires it to be a 360 circling skill. It does not need to be a clear circling skill. So a back hip circle, a front hip circle, something like that would be able to meet that requirement, where it would not have previously been able to meet it in 6 and 7. And then we are just kind of, it does replace some of the other changes like a bar change or a second clear circling element that were in existence in 6-7, and it just requires a kip, which most people that would be competing 6 or 7 would likely already have a kip in their routine. And as far as a dismount, it only requires that the dismount be from the high bar. So a swing half turn dismount, like in the upper level compulsories, would be eligible as a counting dismount in Excel Platinum, whereas in 6 and 7, it would have to be a salto. So it does allow a little bit more flexibility for someone that may not be able to do a salto dismount on bars. Excuse me. In terms of beam, the requirements remain largely the same. So full turn, the one notable change in terms of the dance requirement is that in 6 and 7, it only required a single leap or jump that reached 180 degrees, whereas it does need to be a connection in Platinum. However, the split requirement is much lower. So in USAG 6 and 7, it was listed as 180 degrees. Technically, to meet the requirement, you only had to reach 135 degrees, but anything below 180 would be eligible for deduction in terms of amplitude. For Excel Platinum, you only have to reach 120 degrees, and as long as it reaches 120 degrees, there is no deduction for amplitude. So for example, let's say you did a split jump in level 6 versus Platinum that reached 135 degrees. In Excel Platinum, that would have no deduction in terms of amplitude. And then in level 6, it would be eligible for 2 to 3/10 of amplitude deduction. So we're kind of decreasing some of the potential deduction for a lot of athletes in terms of not reaching that full split. In terms of acro, the requirement is essentially the same as level 6. It just specifies that one skill must reach or go through vertical, which for the most part, most athletes were likely doing already. So you can either have a non-flight acro series, so for example, cartwheel, cartwheel, forward roll cartwheel, things like that. Or you can have a singular flight element, so a dive cartwheel or a round off or a front handspring or a back handspring. Either the connection or the single flight element would meet that requirement. And then similar to bars, any dismount would be eligible to meet the requirement. It would not necessarily have to be an aerial or salto dismount. So for example, the round off where you just use a repulsion off the end of the beam to your feet, that would be eligible in Platinum, whereas it would not have been eligible in 6 and 7. In terms of floor, again, most of this remains similar, but it is a little bit different. So the full turn remains the same. And like I said, the dance passage remains the same with the exception of now you only need 150-degree split instead of 180. So that same deduction rule that I just talked about applies. And then one of the more complicated things about level 7 was the tumbling pass requirements. I will say the new requirements for Platinum are slightly more difficult than they were for level 6, but we will be creating some content in the near future in terms of ways to be able to meet these requirements. So the first is an acro pass with directly connected flight elements, one of which is an A or B salto. So round off, back tuck, front handspring, front tuck, something like that. The difference being that from level 6 is that it does actually require a salto, and an aerial can't be a part of that. And then the second pass either has to have 2 flight skills, or it can be a singular B salto. So round off, back handspring, front handspring, step out, round off are 2 examples of the 2 flight skills, or you could do an isolated B salto like a front pike would be something that was eligible to meet the requirements in Platinum. Does anybody have any questions about Platinum versus 6-7? Okay, I will. This is almost done. The only thing I have left to talk about is the very minor changes to 8 and 9. Let me pull this up. So one of the things that we changed this year is we got rid of the up to level composition requirements, or composition deductions actually is the term for level 8 and level 9. So if you were to look at the code of points, there are a couple different variations of composition deductions. So the ones we're specifically referring to that we've gotten rid of are the ones that are listed as being up to level, or the up to competitive level. So there's a chart here that specifies these composition deductions, and I want to make clear these are the ones that are not being taken. And I believe we have it listed here as well. So yes, this level 8-9 composition deduction chart with the up to level composition deductions will not be taken in NAIGC competition. There are 2 links up here, one for level 8 and one for level 9, that will still be taken. So these, for the most part, let me zoom in here. So there's things like for beam, having an acro element in 2 different directions, so backward and forward to sideward, up to 110. All of these are still being taken, but if you look down here and it specifies these not up to competitive level, those are the ones that are not being taken. So front handspring, front tuck is not allowed in level 8. It is only allowed in level 9. So if you were to look at these anything that says not up to the competitive level, those are the ones that are not being taken, and everything else is. These are also highlighted in the quick guide in the posters. Let me double check. Yes. So we have the in the posters and the quick guide, the ones that are still eligible to be taken, we have those highlighted on the posters and the quick guides as well, if you ever had any questions about that. So that applies to both level 8 and level 9. Otherwise, we did not make any changes, and USAG did not make any changes to the requirements and special requirements for levels 8 and 9. The only change for NAIGC is just the change in these composition deductions. And as far as here, you can also see we have the vault value chart. So for example, you're just asking about the front handspring, front tuck. We can click on the level 8 requirement or vault options. And these are all of the eligible vaults for level 8. Are there any other questions about the levels and the changes for this year? Okay, hearing none, I'll go ahead and stop sharing. Again, if anyone has any questions after this meeting, feel free to stick around. I'd be happy to try and answer. In terms of platinum bars, finishing and clear support, I mean, that is not unique to platinum. That is something that existed in 6 and 7 as well. And it can be above clear support. It could even be in handstand as far as meeting the requirement. It just has to be technically above horizontal to get no deduction, and it just has to be within 10 degrees of horizontal to get credit. You don't have to do it in level 8 or 9. However, that is still something that if we're going to keep any intermediate level, that this is the same as USAG in some capacity, it is a requirement that's going to unfortunately have to stick around. And the way we basically chose the level that makes that meeting that requirement the easiest that it can be. Anyone else? But yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to stick around. Otherwise, I will let everyone go for the afternoon. Again, thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to come learn about the rules. So we really appreciate it. We want to make sure that you guys feel heard and feel like you have an outlet to be able to make your thoughts and opinions known. As always, if anyone has questions, feel free to reach out to RulesAt. We'd be happy to answer them. And I guess everyone have a great rest of your afternoon.